So why would anyone choose Tantalus of all people to replace Chiron during the Sea of Monsters? Surely there were a ton of other characters that the gods could have chosen in place of Tantalus who would have been a much better fit. As a reminder, Tantalus was spending an eternity in the fields of punishment for murdering his son and attempting to feed the gods in order to test their omnipotence. And in the Sea of Monsters, he was allowed to take Chiron's place as the camp activities director after he was accused of poisoning Talia's train. If the gods were able to pull someone from the underworld to take Chiron's place, then why not choose a famed Greek hero rather than a sociopathic murderer? Surely Achilles or Odysseus could use some fresh air, and even though they had their own problems, we'd argue that Tantalus was still way worse. We're sure someone from Elysium would be happy to come on a field trip and watch over the campers. But we think we've cracked it, and we believe the answer comes down to Dionysus. At this point in the books, Zeus is punishing Dionysus by forcing him to work for 100 years at the camp, and on the outside, it's very apparent what he thinks of this. We know that Dionysus loathes his sentence, and he's just writing out the punishment at Camp Half-Blood until he's no longer obligated to babysit the demigods under his care. But when you peel back the layers, we can see that Dionysus does actually end up caring about the heroes he guides, at least later on. So from here, we believe that one of two things is happening, and it all has to do with where Dionysus is on his personal journey, and how much he cares about the demigods at this point in his life. He doesn't act like it, but when worse comes to worse, he can be relied on. He helps Nico through his trauma in the Sun and the Star, and even though Percy enticed him by sacrificing Kaiser's ship on the Mark of Athena, he did show up to help against Otis and Ephialtes. He made a show of it, and made Percy and Jason jump through a bunch of hoops first, but he did end up helping, and we're confident that after the Titan War, he would have recognized the threat of the giants, and jumped in to help regardless. During the Sea of Monsters, however, none of this had happened yet, so it's possible that Dionysus hadn't grown fond of the camp at this point in the books. If that's the case, the misery loves company, and we think Dionysus wanted someone to be more miserable at the camp than he was. By bringing Tantalus up, he would force him to partake in camp activities while still enduring his punishment, which we do see carries over to his time on the surface. This would give Dionysus a small reprieve, someone to laugh at for being even worse off than him, but again, this is contingent on whether or not Dionysus had begun caring about the demigods yet, because there is a second opinion. Olympus had come close to falling once, and we know that gods are able to undergo character development over a relatively short time relative to how long the gods live. The entire Trials of Apollo series takes place over the course of about 6 months or so from mid-January in the Hidden Oracle to mid-June when the series ends. We don't officially know how long Dionysus has been at Camp Half-Blood before Percy got there, but if Apollo was able to grow and learn as much as he did in just 6 months, then Dionysus surely could have grown to like at least some of the demigods over several years. We also know that he asks Percy to look after his sons, Castor and Pollux, and even though these are his own kids, he does care about demigods, which is how we get to Tantalus. On paper, the fact that he cares about demigods should mean that he should have advocated for anyone else to take Chiron's place. If, at this point in his life, he did care, then that would mean that if Dionysus supported or even suggested that Tantalus should have been paroled, then at best he would be hampering the training of every demigod at camp since the activities director was inept. And at worst, he'd be putting them in the same room as a known child murderer. So, if Dionysus does like the campers, then why would he want Tantalus? What this would end up doing is demonstrating just how effective Chiron is at his job. We believe that at this point in time, he doesn't care about the campers as an individual, but as a means to an end. In the Trials of Apollo, Apollo talks in depth about how the gods need humans, and even though they would never be caught dead saying as much. They rely on the worship and prayers of mortals to retain their forms, and when a god is not worshipped, they begin to fade from existence. The stronger the belief in the gods become, which is why multiple pantheons can coexist alongside one another. Apollo has personally known several gods who end up fading from existence, and he knows that the gods need demigods to survive. Dionysus is well aware of this relationship. They fought off the Titans, and they fought off the Giants, but before this, mortals were still an integral part of their survival. Since the days of ancient Greece, the gods have been helping heroes on their journeys, giving them artifacts and tools which can help them on quests. It's why Hermes gave the original Perseus the winged sandals and a guide to slaying Medusa. And it's why Psyche got godly help after cleaning the shrines of Demeter and Hera, and even though these are framed as being reciprocal, there's a much deeper meaning. The gods need to keep being worshipped, so they offer help and disguise it as being thankful for some other service. And Dionysus knows this. He knows that the world needs heroes, and that the gods need the young heroes who are currently being trained in camp, so he needs to make sure the gods appreciate Chiron by showing them what would happen without him. By bringing Tantalus on board, he knows that the camp would end up in ruin, either because Tantalus is outwardly malicious, or simply because his training would not properly prepare demigods for their adult lives. If demigods start dying much more rapidly, then the gods would eventually realize that they're losing power. As a god, however, Dionysus has time to burn. So if this plan takes a few years, then so be it. If he needs to demonstrate how effective Chiron was by allowing Tantalus to take over and send the entire camp into ruin, then the gods will take notice. And taking the long way is fine by Mr. D. He's going to be trapped here either way, might as well have some entertainment and to teach the gods a lesson all at once. Only after this, however, does he begin to care about demigods as individuals, and he eventually starts taking a much more active role in their lives. He gets protective of his own sons, aids Percy a few times throughout the story, and even takes a keen interest in Nico's mental health. The gods may not care about Camp Half-Blood, but they will surely care once it's gone, and there's no heroes left to defend them. It's mortals who give gods the power, not the other way around, and it's been heroes who have been protecting the gods for centuries. But that's our take on why the gods would choose Tantalus of all people to take over as the activities director for Camp Half-Blood. Do you guys think that this tracks, or is there something that we're missing? As always, we love this series, we love talking about this series, so if there's anything you want us to cover, be sure to let us know and join in the conversation. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.